Well, hello everyone, and thank you for staying that late. And I hope the presentation will be worth it. So just to start with, because of my last question, I want to make it clear, I'm not against CCS. That's not the point. I'm just with what to do, when to do, and if it's impactful or not. The whole presentation is going to be around that, and that is the main point I want to achieve, or I hope to achieve. So what I hope to achieve from the presentation is a proposal, an approach of a blueprint of effective decarbonization for the cement industry. The main story I'm going to tell is, first of all, we are very far behind what we want to deliver. Very, very far behind up to what we want to deliver. And even what we promised. So regardless of the science of climate and the gap that the science sees, what we promised as leaders, as governments, as business leaders, we are way behind them. And if we have been for the past 6 years missing out on how to deliver, then there is something wrong that is happening. Either we are over-promising for PR reasons, or we are underdoing, or our expectation is wrong. The main point is there is an emission gap that, according to science, is posing a real threat on how we conduct business. We are starting to see insurance companies doubling up on insurance that is relative to climate resilience. We have seen the hottest summers in many consequent years in many countries in the past 2-3 years. So it seems that the science is legit. It seems that the impact on climate is real. And it's obvious that we are behind our promises, not behind the science. So this map shows on an NDC level, NDC 3 is where countries commit on sectorial level on decarbonization promises. So out of the whole world, only 28 countries have submitted. To be fair, only 44 countries have submitted. Only 2 of them has detailed roadmaps on sectorial level. This is UK and Norway. That's only those. So we are really, really behind on governance level, on commitment level, on planning levels. And if you look at the sector side, we are promising or expecting a minus 43 reduction by 2030. The current pledges, the current roadmaps, the current promises on ground will only deliver currently 2.6%. So we are 39% behind what we promised, not what is required, what we promised. If you looked at the sector from a PR perspective, we have 85% of cement plants have a net zero pledge. A roadmap, a pledge, whatever, an announcement, 85%. Out of those, 23% only have plant-specific action plans. And by specific, I will show that at the end of my presentation, the difference between having a roadmap and having a real specific implementation technology roadmap with cost abatement and implementation. Out of those 23, only 12% have fully costed plans. And fully costed means that it's not based on the carbon price, it's based on the abatement cost. And there is a major difference between that. You can make any ROI, any project, you can make it feasible if you take carbon price at 200 euros, of course. But is it? That's a different story. So by having costed plans, I mean cost of real technology abatement, a project, as we all know as engineers, how to make a cost project that is a costing list that will actually deliver that plan. It's not hanging on some laws to come up, some infrastructure that does not exist, some carbon pricing that is completely estimated and projected. That is not costing a project. When we cost a cement plant, we can say immediately that a cement plant of 10,000 tons per day or 6,000 tons per day will cost $220 million. We know for a fact that it costs like that, and we know for a fact that if we do it in Europe, it's going to be 350, and we know the exact size of land and the amount of OPEX that we need for a year. Any project that is not costed like that is not a costed project in the cement world. So only 12% of these maps are costed this way. 8% of them have secured financing. The difference between the 8 and the 12 tells you that financing is not a problem. When you cost projects well, you can finance them because they are bankable. The difference between 8% and 85% tells you the gap of financing that we are talking about. Of course, yes, the only money that you can get for a non-bankable project is taxpayers' money, is public funding, because it's free. But when it's a bank and the net impact will come on the P&L of the bank, they need bankable projects. They need projects that they can ensure that it will happen and they can ensure its results. And this is the difference between 8% and 85%. At least in our world, talking on what they call the global south. This is how projects are being looked at. There is no free money. So, since decarbonization, and I'm talking starting Glasgow, where the first mover coalition was formed, when cement was unscientifically named hard to abate sector, since then, there have been two directions into decarbonization. One is a political direction, or let's say a political-driven direction, which is CCS. It's a very easy approach. We have carbon, we capture carbon, we store carbon, problem solved. But actually, the problem of decarbonization is reducing the carbon emission from the industry. That is the direction. The Paris Convention was not made to manage the existing carbon. It was made to reduce the carbon emission. This is why we have an SBTI, which most people avoid, the carbon intensity KPI. We should work on the carbon intensity of our industry to make it lower to be able to decarbonize. So any solution that is not doing that, or actually, in the worst case, asking for the reverse of that. Why is carbon capture will work very well in UK? Because it's old plants. It's inefficient plants. The more the inefficiency of the cement plant, the better it is for CCS. Actually, we were talking about collaboration between oil and cement. Oil companies ask cement operators to derate cement plants to enhance the business case of carbon capture. That is a fact. This is not a thinking. This is a fact that is happening. So the point is, carbon capture cannot be the solution, and it has been proven that it might be a solution going forward, a last resort for the remaining 25%, but thinking of it as a silver bullet is keeping everything else low, is reducing the time and the money and the efficiency that we do on all the other levers that can bring us the 50% reduction that we want to do. And it's killing the circularity angle out of the cement sector as well. So that is, I would say, the political narrative. This is the more industrial narrative. Of course, this is easier to say, much harder to implement. This is harder to, I would say, PR, or mention, but it's much easier to implement, and it is within the control of the sector. We do not need infrastructures that we don't control. We do not need storages that we don't have. We do not need laws that are not yet invented and not yet implemented. And we do not need, on top of that, the complications of carbon financing that we are talking about. We are talking now about carbon accounting and financing for the cement sector, as if the carbon price is what we're looking at. We should be looking at the cement cost. And the cement price will follow a market dynamic, and the margin should end up in our competitiveness. This is how sustainability was designed, that we produce the best possible product that we can, at the best environmental aspects that we can, at the lowest cost that is possible, to get the market to drive prices, so we maintain margin and we stay in competition. Sustainability 12 years, 15 years ago was defined like that. And I don't think that the definition has changed. So looking at this abatement cost takes you to a no-brainer decision in planning strategies. Very simple. You have technologies below the curve, and you have technologies at the end of the spectrum over there. So we can consume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 technologies before we reach CCS. That takes us to 60% of reduction. This is the 60% that we need before 2040 and before it's too late. And those are doable, does not need infrastructure, they are all at RTL 10, except maybe hydrogen as a catalyst. This is maybe RTL 9, but still we are all at very high RTL. They are all bankable. They are all accepted by banks. They all have a business case. They all have ROIs. They are all resulting in competitiveness. And the question that will rise, and I know that it will rise, why isn't it happening? Because those are harder to implement. Those are actual implementation. Those are real hard work. Those on a board level does not look sexy enough. Those are technical. They need actual cement expertise to do it. They do not need accounting or top layer, I would say, strategic consultancies to tell you how to do it. These are real cement by cement technologies. And this is what we need to focus on. That takes us to why it's not happening. Because the paradox on the top level is carbon price, not carbon cost. You have countries that doesn't even have an MRV today, that are thinking, opting, and talking about doing carbon markets. Imagine, you have countries that does not have any measurement of carbon. They are opting and they are accepted to have carbon trading mechanisms. And this is why they want to do ATS. This is financialization in accordance to what was said in the morning about deindustrialization of cement. This is financialization of decarbonization. Decarbonization is about actual lowering of carbon. So it's about carbon cost, not carbon price. So the solution is in those two strategies. And when we were talking about CCUS, meeting the cost of CCUS to actually have what is called the green premium, the first thing was said is green procurement policy. And yes, we need green procurement policy, but not necessarily to force cement to be at 300 euros. It's enough to have a segregation of opportunity for greener products. That alone will maintain competitiveness. Second is, we were talking in the morning about reverting back to using standard carbon numbers. That means that the real numbers are real bad. This is the only meaning. If I revert back to use standard numbers, when I do have actual measurements, it reflects only that actual measurements are really bad. And that means that we are not decarbonizing enough. In between is the SBTI adoption, very clear, specific approach for decarbonization actual reduction. And that's why its adoption is problematic. Forget the SBTI announcement and declaration, which have reputation issues on a board level. I'm talking about adoption. So using the narrative of SBTI, using the science approach of SBTI, and using it for reduction, which maintains 1.5 degree pathway and actually leads to actual carbon reduction, not gimmicks in calculations. Second is focus on near term. The main push that took us to CCUS in Glasgow was the net zero announcement. We want to get to net zero in 2050, 2055, 2045, 2060. Great, okay, perfect. But if we do not get the near term, the 1.5 degree, which we have pushed it 5 years from 2030 to 2035, if we don't get that, the carbon models that all the pricing is based on will completely shift. These numbers will not exist. That's why the insurance on carbon prices does not exist, because these models are not sufficiently intact to give numbers if 1.5 is not maintained. And we have already passed it. So our best approach is a below 2 scenario. It's still intact. And the NDC3, which is the main source of knowledge and driver of the climate, is UN. We use UN rules only when it suits the financial story about carbon price. But when it comes to actual decarbonization rules, we go to everyone else. The narrative of UN is only used on carbon trade mechanisms, on the 6.4, 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. But when it comes to actual decarbonization, when it comes to an NDC that is sectorial and requires each government to develop a real decarbonization map for each sector, no. It's too complicated to do that. But it's not complicated to spend hours and years to try to define a carbon price that will never exist. I've heard the statement that says, we want to implement this technology in this country. The only way is to lobby to get the carbon price to that level. That's not decarbonization. That's pure financial market. That's nothing to do with decarbonization and will not result in a competitive edge for the cement industry. It has nothing to do with our own best interest. So the best thing that best role that the cement industry can play is circularity. We have a great advantage when it comes to circularity. It helps decarbonization. It has a business case, and it gives a lot of positive impact. We are a center for SEM, alternative fuel. We kick too many problems at one point. We use native material, valorize waste, solve a lot of methane issues, and reduce cost, or even increase it if we go for sequestration. But at the end of the day, it's an active decarbonization approach that is in the best interest of the industry, that is technologically affordable, that is within the capex limitations, general logical capex limitations of a cement plant. You cannot convince any logical thinking that a plant that produces a product using $30 should be cleaned with a technology that uses $700. It's as if hiring maids for the company that takes salaries higher than the CEO. It makes no sense. It's a twisted, reversed logic. Yes, we need CCS at the end of the day. Again, I'm not against it. But we will need it when we can afford it, when the infrastructure is there, when the The technology has matured enough. Let's use what we have to achieve what we can today, and it's in our best interest. It's a business case, it's related to carbon, it has a price, and it gives you competitiveness. So finally, what I say as a blueprint is the blue pieces. The blueprint is the blue pieces. We need to, you cannot still talk about modernization of the cement plant. It was said in the morning that we are not adopting the BAT. The BAT is well-known, well-written, and it's not adopted. That's here in operational excellence. Product portfolio optimization is a solution that will not only fix some economies, it will help reduction of a lot of maritime third scope 3, in the cement industry. We are moving around millions of tons of fly ash and slag from one country to the other. That is moving waste. It's against Kyoto, and it's against a lot of logics as well. And we are not valorizing any of these countries' waste because we are not using carbon in a sequestration process. We are using it to store it. So we are missing a lot of opportunities on those two boxes, and this one as well, where we are not using the claim of 80% alternative fuel. When we say TSR, we need to mention utilization with it. Because when you tell me about a cement plant in south of France that is using 90% alternative fuel, yes, but it works only 4 months in the year. And I know the plant, and I know the operation. And not only this plant, I know the rest. So the point is, if we want to have an average of TSR, it has to be an average against an average of utilization that is known in the cement industry of 70%, the golden ratio. So this is where we need to average. You will find that the world average is less than 30% AF. In some countries, it's 5 or low. In some countries, it's 45 and 50. But we can get 80 and 90. Japan has been running on 80 and 90 on full utilization since 20 years. It's highly doable. But why do it if we can have other better PR solutions? So those are all adding value, competitiveness, circular, in positive impact to local economies. They are and logic, and within the grasp of the cement industry and under their control. The fifth one is a bit of a move out, and this one. And a piece of that, where we have hydrogen as a catalyst fuel. It's still doable. It's an expensive technology, but it's still doable. It still has a lot of impact on those blue boxes, makes it much better. And calcined clay, it's a very good replacement of clinker. We will not be able to replace all clinker, but replacing a good chunk of it is quite great. To move faster, this is what I call a costed roadmap. This is how to have a technology cost roadmap. It's not by percentage, that's for sure, and it has to be related to intensity, and it has to have technology on it, and each technology needs to have a cost impact. This is how you make an actual, factual roadmap for decarbonization in a cement plant. Finally, the best thing about circularity is it fits everybody. It fits producers, it fits investors, and it fits policymakers. It's much easier to sell than carbon capture. It's much harder to say because it needs knowledge, but it's much faster to sell and to implement. And that's why it's happening faster, even without promotion. Circularity is happening on its own faster than CCS because there is benefit for everyone. If we do that, we will solve decarbonization and we'll maintain our competitiveness and we'll make some good money on the side. Finally, net zero is not a technology issue. It's a leadership issue. If we decide that decarbonization is important if we believe and understand the logic of climate, then as leaders, we need to do more, and we need to do it on circularity first, and then other things. So our message is very clear. Industry has tools to cut 50% of emissions now. Net zero is not a waiting game, it's a doing game. Those who align carbon with cost and competitiveness will take the lead. Not carbon price, but decarbonization cost. Thank you very much.